News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Lisa Mateo.
And I'm Karen Moscow.
Karen, we begin with the latest developments in the war in Ukraine. Moscow and Kyiv are still preparing to send delegations to Turkey for a second round of peace talks today. Now, this comes after a Ukrainian drone attack destroyed more than 40 Russian planes deep in Russia's territory. Ukraine claims the operation caused losses totaling at least $2 billion. Here's President Volodymyr Zelensky speaking through an interpreter.
34% of the strategic cruise missile carriers stationed at air bases were hit. Our personnel operated across multiple Russian regions in 3 different time zones, and the people who assisted us were withdrawn from Russian territory before the operation. They are now safe.
Zelensky's comments came as his country also came under one of the longest barrages of Russian missiles and drones on Sunday.
Now to another major story we're following this morning. Lisa, 8 people have been injured in an attack at an event for Israeli hostages in Colorado. Officials say the suspect, 45-year-old Mohammed Sabri Solomon, shot at Free Palestine and threw an incendiary device into the crowd during the attack in the city of Boulder. Local police chief Stephen Redfern says the neighborhood will stand strong.
Boulder is not immune to tragedy, sadly, and I know a lot of people are scared right now. A lot of people are upset and questioning how this happened and why. All I know is Boulder has recovered before from acts of violence, and we will again.
Boulder Police Chief Stephen Redfern says the 8 victims who were wounded range in age from 52 to 88, and the injuries span from serious to minor.
Karen, to Europe now. A nationalist candidate backed by Donald Trump won Poland's presidential election. Karol Nawrocki, who has no previous political experience, defeated the centrist mayor of Warsaw in a blow to the country's pro-European Union government. Bloomberg's Oliver Crook is covering the election in Warsaw.
I think there are also much larger implications beyond Poland for this. I mean, let's not lose sight of the fact that the EU is currently engaged in a trade war, trade diplomacy with the United States. And what the EU really wanted was more solidarity. And they did not want a sort of prominent nation, a protagonist within Europe, basically undermining the unity within Europe and electing somebody who is really sort of very EU skeptical.
Bloomberg's Oliver Crook says Karol Nawrocki won 50.9%, while Rafael Tavskovsky took 49.1%.
Lisa, tensions may be escalating between China and the U.S. China is now accusing the U.S. of violating their recent trade deal and vows to take measures to defend its interests. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce is rebuking President Trump's claim on Friday that Beijing breached the consensus reached in Geneva last month. Still, the director of the White House National Economic Council, Kevin Hassett, believes the 2 leaders could talk this week.
We expect us going to have a wonderful conversation about the trade negotiations this week with President Xi. That's our expectation. But the bottom line is that we've got to be ready in case things don't happen the way we want.
The White House National Economic Council's Kevin Hassett spoke on ABC's This Week. Catch the program Sundays right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Karen, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent also made the rounds on the Sunday talk shows. He spoke with CBS's Face the Nation, also heard right here on Bloomberg Radio about the federal debt ceiling.
The United States of America is never going to default. That is never going to happen. That we are on the warning track and we will never hit the wall.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent declined to specify an X date for when the Treasury will run out of cash. Republican congressional leaders have attached an increase in the debt limit to President Trump's tax and spending bill, which potentially puts avoiding a default at the mercy of complex negotiations over the legislation.
Lisa, General Electric is passing on additional charges caused by President Trump's tariffs. The world's largest aircraft engine maker has about $500 million in residual cost challenges stemming from the tariffs. Chief Executive Larry Culp spoke earlier this morning with Bloomberg's Guy Johnson in New Delhi.
What we've been advocating for is a return to where we were on the heels of the 1979 Civil Aviation Agreement, which really provided tariff-free trade amongst all the signatories. That was a positive for the U.S. aerospace industry. I think that is why the U.S. enjoys a $75 billion annual trade surplus today. But we'll see how that plays out. There are a series of bilateral negotiations that are active.
And GE Chief Executive Larry Culp says he is in close contact with the company's supply chain and would like the industry to speak with a unified voice to achieve a duty-free regime.
And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Lisa Mateo.
I'm Karen Moscow, and this is Bloomberg.